Hello and welcome to Shape the World. This is a wonderful conversation today. We are focused on something that we're doing in gratitude for the launch of Goodwill Vows. If you haven't heard about Goodwill Vows, you're in the right place. You're going to learn some more. But in the spirit of gratitude, we're having conversations about the future of philanthropy. And we're spending some quality time with people who are going to bring their own perspective to this conversation. By virtue of their own engagements. And here, Asheesh, you'll forgive me, you're becoming a regular. So anyone watching these videos will know Asheesh by now. So please allow me to welcome, and please join me in giving a proper Shape the World welcome to Professor Sanyin Siang. Welcome, Professor. And you should unmute just in case, so we hear everything you want to say. But welcome. So Professor Siang is a professor at Duke University. And she's ranked the #1 coach in the world. And so you are in privileged company. The wonderful thing is, obviously, she's used to interacting with people, and she said she's happy to respond to any questions today. So any questions at all, you can even sneak in a coaching tip question if you want. We won't charge you, don't worry. But any questions you want, you can ask. So Professor, please, if you want to say hello to everybody.
It's so good to be here. And I love what United People Global is doing, because my personal mission in life is to empower greatness in others. So everything I do is a platform for how we can make the world better. So bravo to you for what you're doing, Yemi.
Thank you. Doesn't she sound like a great coach? Yeah. Well, I guess, she can't change her stripes. So thank you, Professor. Also with us today is the wonderful Asheesh Advani, President and CEO of JA Worldwide. He needs no introduction at this point, but Asheesh, please say hello.
I love being a regular on these, Yemi. You put together such a great community of people who really want to have voices heard and get into a dialogue. So thank you for inviting me back to talk about this important topic.
All right, awesome. Thank you. So today we have a special conversation. We like to say it's not a webinar, but we're going to kind of mix both formats today. So we're going to allow the speakers to share more thoughts than usual. But don't worry, this is still Shape the World. So they will still respond to your questions. So please get ready to ask questions. Okay, I know many of you are regulars, but just in case, there are a few wonderful new people here like Danielle, Louise, a few that I haven't seen before, but we also have wonderful regulars. Hi, Brandy. Hi, Tom. Hi, Femi. Hi, Rosalind. Why don't we go ahead and get started? I think as everyone, I'm going to go to Professor Siang first with a question. And maybe while she's sharing some first thoughts with us, let's see if we can get the poll up. And so we can use the poll for conversation. Like, do you see this kind of spectrum in terms of how people act or talk about philanthropy? We can use it to talk about how people are voting. We can use it for what we want, but we'll leave the poll going. Now, Professor Siang, love to come to you to just share some thoughts. You work as an executive coach. You work with people who, I guess, they really shape the lives of others, right? They lead big organizations, big initiatives. They're definitely fortunate people. And many, if not all of them, are in the position, I guess, to be generous or to give. So I'm sure you observe lots of things in your work with these people. But the floor is open. You got the mic, and you can be as wide as you want. So some of your thoughts on the subject matter from your perspective.
Thank you so much, Yemi. So when I think about philanthropy, I look back to the origin of the word, which is love of humanity, of humanity. Okay. And when we think about that, I think also about my world is really about leadership. And why do we lead? We don't lead for self. We actually lead because we believe that there is a better trajectory that's out there, because leadership is hard. Bearing that mantle of leadership, it's hard. And so having that sense of responsibility, why do we lead and why people follow us, is because they believe that we are, a person follows a leader because they believe that leader has a vision and a way of getting there that will be inclusive of them, right? And so when we connect the two of philanthropy and leadership, I think about this idea of we can lead from where we are, because leadership isn't about position or title or status. It's really about influence and the type of behaviors in context that lead to that influence. So whether you are, a common question I get asked a lot, is there a particular leadership style? Is there a particular leadership, I don't know, set of attributes? And I would say there's no leadership style because I've seen so many different leadership styles, but at the end of the day, it's this idea of a vision, and it's stemming from a purpose that is larger than ourselves, of creating that better world, right? And so a 15-year-old, I mean, Asheesh with Junior Achievement Worldwide, it's about getting that teenager and empowering them through their entrepreneurial mindset to be able to lead from where they are. Our friend, Asheesh and I know Frances Hesselbein, who's more than 100 years old, and she's leading from where she is. Wow. And so why we lead, and then knowing that we have that agency, each one of us, to contribute and to lead from where we are. I think that's something I wanted as a level setting for those who are joining us today.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you. That's really, really, I think that's really helpful. Kind of, creating that shared understanding. And I almost want to say, and I don't want to sound cheesy, from listening to you, is leadership almost an act of giving in itself?
So I believe that, COVID has really shifted and accelerated a lot of different trends. And one of the trends we were on before that has now gone from a nice to have to a must have when one is leading is this idea of showing up as a human being first, before you show up as a this position or title. And then the second is generosity, right? Generosity, it's an investment. Think about how we got to where we are. That's because of other people's investment in us. We therefore have a responsibility to invest in others. So generosity is a responsibility, but it's also one where there is such wonderful rewards back to the giver, right? Because there's a psychological reward, and then there's the sense of we're living up to our responsibility. And the other thing two quick things I want to share is, let's reimagine who we are responsible for. And so, I mean, if anything is something that, if we've learned something in the past few months, is that we're only as vulnerable. We're only as strong as the most vulnerable in our society. And so therefore, even though the traditional form of leadership is, we're responsible for our team, we got to think bigger. Wearing this mantle of leadership is also wearing this mantle of societal stewardship, because what's good for society is also good for our teams. What's good for society is also good for us, right? So how do we broaden our sense of stakeholders and who are responsible for? And then lastly, is this idea that we're now in a highly interdependent world. You see that because you're global. And so all the problems we're seeing, all the challenges, poverty, education, healthcare, these are complex challenges that require diverse teams. And so one of my favorite stories is actually from, the Gates Foundation was trying to help eliminate malaria in Africa. But they realized they have the research and they have the funds, but you need so much more in tackling this complex problem. So they reached out to the Methodist Church because they realized that the Methodist pastors have a lot of credibility. And then they reached out to the MBA because the MBA, that's how they can amplify the message, because basketball. And then they also partnered with UNICEF because UNICEF has the infrastructure to be able to deliver the mosquito nets to the different villages. And so I think we'll see a lot more in leading unlikely collaborations.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. All right, this is shaping up very nicely. Philanthropy is a love of humanity. Leadership is a form of giving. We've learned that the world is more interdependent now than maybe many of us realized before. And crucially, leading in this day and age, you first have to show up as a human. You first have to make that connection before you show up as an authority, and so much more. Now, welcome. I see more names. Welcome, Adejuma Bakare. Thank you for joining us. I see one question. You know how this works, right? So if you're thinking of your question, well, this is about giving. Please give us your question. Put it in the Q&A section. And to make life easier, you can ask any question you want, okay? Any question you want. You can see Louise is a newbie. Louise, we love your question, but you put it in the chat. See, this is Shape the World, right? So we're all humans here, so we can make fun of each other. So Louise, welcome. We love the question. But everybody else, remember, put it in the Q&A section so the newbies can see. So we're going to take some questions now. And there's a poll. If you haven't answered the poll, please respond to the poll. All right, let's take a first question. Excellent. All right, so Professor Siang, this is for you. I read your podcast transcript with the Bregman Leadership Podcast. Absolutely moving. You elaborated on the several reasons why you wrote the launch book. With the level of uncertainty we're experiencing in the world right now, how do the principles you wrote in the launch book apply to the future of philanthropy? Great question, Rafaela. Wow. If we were doing giveaways, you get the prize. Someone actually prepared for the conversation. Thank you. Professor.
Rafaela, thank you so much for that kind feedback on that podcast. And when I wrote the launch book, it was because I know we are all, even before this, we were already in an uncertain world, right? For the last decade or plus. And so it's about how do we get comfortable with change? And it's a mindset, this idea of constantly reinventing ourselves, constantly adapting. And that's the principles of launch, is this mindset. And when I think about the 4 elements in it, one is you have to know yourself. It starts with understanding your why, your purpose. That still applies. And we talked about the love of humanity. If that's a strong, if that's a core element of your why and your purpose, that's a really great start. And the second is this idea of building our tribe, or this notion we don't succeed alone. And so we need to engage others.
Love
right?
it.
And that applies more than ever today. I mean, me and Asheesh can attest to that in their organizations. And the third is, the best laid plans often neglect, as the great quote goes. And so if you know your why and you have a sense of what the end game should be, or end objective, the strategies and the tactics for getting there, you should be able to adjust and pivot, right? So that's about pivoting and reframing. Can we reframe the problem? Can we reframe the situation so that it leads to opportunities? And the last part is this idea of, just because we celebrate your victories, but when we get to, when we achieve one level, there's always the next play. So don't let our failures or our successes, it's Coach K always says, do you want to live your life looking in the rearview mirror? No. So next play. That's another Coach K quote. And with that next play, generosity has to be a big part of it, because part of our every play is this idea of we have to invest in other people's successes. And that's how we build teams.
I love it. Thank you so much. Great questions. Audience, this is how it's done. All right, this is Shape the World. You're shaping a beautiful conversation, and we need more questions. Let's encourage our newbie. Louise asked the question, so let's get this question out there. But I'm doing this because you promised to feed us more questions. Please, we need more questions. So we do the next question. This is for Asheesh. Because of the pandemic, there are lots of, and this is a new word for me, assistentialist. I think that's a play on words with existential.
No, I think it's about assistance.
Yes,
philanthropy
yes.
for assistance.
Yes, yeah. So beautiful composition there. As assistentialist philanthropy, a lot of people are donating for the first time, Do you think that this is an opportunity to make more structural projects after the hardest of COVID? How do we turn the mind of the philanthropist about the importance of supporting long-term projects? All right, Luis, we get your question. So thank you for that. Asheesh, you got the mic.
Sure. First of all, I really love the fact that people are bold and don't have to worry about getting their English perfectly right or their spelling perfectly right. Please ask the question. We'll figure out what you mean to say. The whole point is to be able to be responsive to your concerns and ideas. So and I guess this is a really timely question, right? So, and it's so relevant for what we're talking about today, because to actually implement a meaningful project, if you work for a nonprofit or if you're trying to create true social change and positive for the world, takes more than 1 year. It takes multiple years. But yet, most organizations live with budgets which are year to year.
Yeah.
So how does philanthropy actually help solve the problem, not create new problems? And that's one reason why what UPG is doing with the Goodwill Vows initiative is so timely, is because this is one of the few ways for nonprofits to be able to raise money for unrestricted funds from philanthropists everywhere, small scale philanthropists. It's not about rich people in some geographies giving money. This is a global initiative where anyone can fund any organization. It's not a JA Worldwide initiative, it's a UPG initiative, and JA Worldwide is just one of the first partners or clients who is sort of on the list of nonprofits that is part of this initiative. And so Luis's question is so timely, but I want to address it really head on, which is, for a first-time giver, how can they make sense of how their small donation actually helps? Well, the way to really think about it is, if you make your small donation restricted to one project, you're limiting the opportunity for the organization to use it for something which might be needed where it's needed most. And you have to trust, I would say, the organization you fund to make those decisions. So I would pick very carefully who you want to fund, because everyone has their strategic goals and projects that they believe that they're passionate about and has found their place in the world. This is to Sanyin's point about great leadership, right? So great leadership is about being generous and really removing obstacles in the way of getting these projects done. So at this moment in time, particularly when so many people are more generous than they've ever been, the ability for initiatives like the Goodwill Vows initiative to actually solve really urgent and important problems goes up. So I hope that was responsive to Luis's question. I tried to also make it relevant to the projects that we're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And for anyone who's wondering what Goodwill Vows is, you will get a sneak preview shortly. And JA Worldwide is the flagship partner. So they're not just saying nice things, they're putting their money where their mouth is. So thank you, JA Worldwide, for your partnership. Okay. Oh, I see another question. Good job, people. Thank you. Very well done. Let's take one more question. And this is from Femi. Thank you, Femi. Before I read that, sorry, my shout out radar is triggering. Victoria Santana. I haven't seen you before, so welcome, Victoria. Thank you for joining us. And then we have regulars, Mr. and Mrs. Salami. Thank you for joining us. Awesome. All right, please. Any question? We are live with Professor Sanyin Siang. She's ranked the #1 executive coach in the world. She's a professor at Duke University. We also have Asheesh Advani with us. And if you're a regular, you'll know Asheesh Advani, President and CEO of JA Worldwide, and a flagship partner of Goodwill Vows. All right, let's take that question. And Professor, if you want this one, how can we continue to make impact in our post-COVID-19 world, especially as there are lots of threats to economic systems, as most countries have actually been projected to be in recession? How do we get more funding? All right, lots of questions in there, Femi. So let's see. Professor, how would you like to respond? And Asheesh, if you want to come in there too, you can.
So my expertise isn't in the fundraising aspects, but I know that drawing on the power of networks and being able to share the data with others who are trying to make that impact, and having the conversations and such as the ones that we're having, and broadening your network with other organizations, and just like the partnership that's happening with UPG and JA, suddenly with that sort of collaboration, you're getting an inflow, you're getting an exchange of data and information that might lead to opening up possibilities and opportunities, right? But in terms of the actual fundraising, I defer to you and Yemi and Asheesh for that answer.
Sure. I mean, I can jump on this one. I think this is my colleague, Achi, from J Nigeria, who's asking this question. So it's a very timely question. It's a question which is being asked by nonprofits all over the world at this time. So there's more need, and there's also a tremendous recession. So while more people are being generous and philanthropic, of course, when we're in a recession, people feel that they don't have as much money to give. So, all these trends are happening at the same time. So what do we do about it? Well, I'll go back to the days of, when I worked in the for-profit world and when we had to raise money. And I remember I had to raise money during the recession after 2000, when the internet bubble had burst and I was just starting my company. And I remember one of my advisors gave me this really great piece of feedback. He said, you should think about raising money a bit like any sales funnel. You have a pipeline of people you intend to ask, and you should think of it as a very systematic way to engage people who you think love your mission. And you've got to make sure your mission is relevant. Yeah. So particularly, I mean, now, given my colleague from J Nigeria, the work that we do to create jobs and to have young people think of themselves as job creators, not somebody who's just going to go work for somebody, but somebody who actually can actually create jobs for themselves and for others, that is so relevant at this time. We've got this massive unemployment crisis. It's very difficult, particularly in Africa, particularly in Nigeria. I mean, you know this, Yemi, you're from Nigeria, to be able to actually think of yourself as a job creator. You've done such an amazing job, Yemi, yourself, in being able to raise resources. So how do you actually put that mindset in a young person? That is so relevant. So how do you communicate that to people in a way that makes them feel motivated to actually support an organization? So I think that's the challenge that we have. And I fundamentally believe if you look at it like a pipeline, and by the way, I say this to all my colleagues, if you aren't rejected at least 3/4 of the time, you're not working hard enough, or your pipeline's not big enough. You should be rejected 3/4 of the time. That works in the for-profit world. The nonprofit world, first of all, it's absolutely okay to be rejected. Yeah. I mean, you ask and they say no, and that's okay. Be respectful to each other and move on. Yeah. So you need to try many things. And I know the team in Nigeria is working so hard, and the crisis has impacted them so substantially. It's impacted everyone. So I just feel a tremendous amount of respect and empathy for my colleague.
Thank you so much. Great answer, especially as part of rejection. I think we're all feeling that. But this is good. You should be rejected at least 3/4 of the time, or you're not working hard enough. So I like that, Asheesh. I need to write that down somewhere. Okay, and Femi is actually part of both our families. Believe that, because he's a UPG champion too. So he's part of the JA family, I guess, and part of our family. So I think that's great crossover right there. Okay, Asheesh, are you ready? I wanted to come to you to share some thoughts. We have more questions, thank you. But we're running this conversation as a bit of a cross between a webinar and a Shape the World. So we'll give our speakers just a bit of time to each share a view. And if you came in late, you missed Professor Siang when she shared. And now Asheesh Advani gets the microphone just to share some thoughts that he has on the subject matter. And then the rest of the time is Shape the World 100%. You drive. So you can start loading up on your questions. Asheesh, you get the mic, please.
Sure, I'll keep this very brief. The future of philanthropy, in my mind, is truly democratic and truly global. It no longer will be just one country or one wealthy region that is supporting the whole world. Everyone in the world will be more philanthropic moving forward. I really believe that in my heart. And I believe initiatives like this one accelerate that trend that's already happening. That's why I'm so really happy to see what UPG is doing. I mean, there are people in the world who have just been looking for a way to be asked in the right way to take their generosity and translate it to philanthropy. Yeah. And in some parts of the world, that's already happened, and it's happened for decades. In other parts of the world, it just hasn't happened yet. But there's absolutely no reason that it shouldn't. So that's my very quick 1 minute or less description of the future of philanthropy.
And bold. So, very bold. Thank you. Professor, did you want to comment on that? You can.
Asheesh, I could listen to you all day long because I'm just getting I'm learning so much from you just in this conversation. And the two things that you said, one is this idea that it's democratic. The future of philanthropy is democratic and it's global. We've seen a shift in terms of control going from institutions, when things were more linear, institutions to individuals. And that's been facilitated by technology, access to technology and social media. And so this idea of, once you set a goal, once there's a shared goal and a shared vision and the sense of, belonging to that shared purpose, then empower individuals to be able to express that, to unleash their generosity, right? But in a way that is collaborative with other individuals and also other institutions that can scale. And so I just absolutely love that. And then the other thing that you had raised earlier is this idea of a long-term thinking. You're right. We're not looking for Band-Aid solutions. We're looking for long-term, sustainable, enduring solutions. And those solutions can only come through multiple experimentations and also failures and learning from those failures and those adjustments and adaptations, right? And that is a long-term play. And so, the challenge of this idea, even in the corporate world, we're seeing these quarterly, it's a quarterly timeline. And we're seeing that, I think what I'm hearing you say is in the philanthropy world, in the NGO world, it's also that compressed short-term timeline. It's so important to balance that short term with never losing sight of the long term and being able to explain that the reason why, the contextual understanding, so that people can give that latitude for experimentation and for failures.
Brilliant. Thank you. And you can come in anytime you want, Professor. I think maybe to share some data about some of what you both just shared, the idea that the future of philanthropy is democratic. Many of you may have heard that what they call K-pop, Korean pop music fans, they raised $1 million for Black Lives Matter. And they call themselves the army. I think that's another example of, if you like, the democratization of this giving. Now, if we're going to give them credit, we should give credit to the band. I think it's called BTS. It's one of the bands that actually gave $1 million to Black Lives Matter and told their fans that to match their $1 million, and their fans matched the $1 million. And so again, just that you talked about technology that's driving this, social media driving this. This is, I think, a strong example of that. So thank you very much. All right, the audience is so energized. Great questions. So let's Brandy has a lovely question for Professor Siang. She says, I don't know that much about leadership coaching, but from what I understand, a good part of it is inspiring others. What advice do you have for all of us in inspiring others to make philanthropy a central part of people's lives, regardless of how much someone can give? Every dollar counts, especially now. Thank you, Brandy. Professor?
Thank you, Brandy, for that question. So a big part of leadership is you having your skin, demonstrating you have skin in the game, right? I use a lot of sports analogies. I'll stop.
We love them. Don't stop. There's no sports going on, really. So sports analogies is the next best thing. Please keep them coming.
All right. So
skin in the game. Let's go.
The game, showing that you are invested in it. So one is, are you giving, right? And you're giving, and are you sharing the story of why you give? So there's two organizations that I'm deeply passionate about. Here, it's based here in Durham, North Carolina. Actually, there's three. One is national, and my passion is education, children's education. I'm a mom, and so it's very dear and near to my heart. And then as part of that education, there's the Emily Krzyzewski Center, which was started to help first generation college hopefuls attain their dream. And the other one is the Museum of Life and Science here, where it's fostering a sense of wonder and critical thinking in our next generation. And then the national one is the U.S. Congressional Awards, which is helping to unleash the potential of the next generation of leaders, the high school to college. And those are all around education. And so there's a consistency and demonstrating that, you know, if you want to inspire someone to give, you have to start by giving yourself and sharing that story. But then on the inspiration part, I had a realization, an aha moment about how we inspire. And we think, and I was thinking about this question because I was struggling with how to be inspiring, because I think when I thought about inspiring people, I thought, oh, that's about charisma, or they're amazingly witty and funny or eloquent. And I don't feel like I feel like that's less attainable for me. Yeah. And then I realized when I reflect on people who have inspired me, it's less about how they are, but more about how they made me feel. And they made me feel like I'm empowered. They see something in me that it made me realize that how I can contribute to the world. So how you inspire is more about listening to the other person and seeing what is it about them that is perhaps a superpower, and how they can add value, and sharing that with them and making them, believing in them, and making them realize, you know what, they have agency, they have power to make a difference.
I love it. Brandy, I hope you got that. Asheesh,
I got to jump in because that's so right. I mean, to actually coach somebody is to help them see their greatest strength, not to identify all their flaws that they dwell on and obsess over. And if you help people see their greatest strength, they actually on their own pick one or two things that they feel are not their strength, and can share with all of their stakeholders that they're going to work on those one or two things with all the confidence that comes by actually knowing what they're good at. And it's fundamentally life-changing when people have agencies to make the choice themselves, as opposed to they're told by their boss or their board or their peers, they got to focus on this, this, and this. It's such a powerful thing. And both Sanyin and I have had the pleasure of being taught by Marshall Goldsmith about this. At least that's where I learned it. I'm not sure about you, Sanyin, but it's been amazing to learn.
I love it. And since we're jumping in, I got to jump in too. I work with a lot of people, helping people kind of make the world a better place. And I like to tell people and remind them, for those who forgot, that your greatest asset is not your bank balance. Your greatest asset is not your connections. Your greatest asset is you. You. And the biggest obstacle, your biggest liability, the one thing that will stop you when all else fails, is you. Know yourself. That's where your power is. And it's a journey, because we're changing every day. But if you have that discipline to know yourself, understand what gives you pleasure, understand what gives you pain, accept yourself, this is when your power really begins to translate into your impact. So I hope you got something from Professor. I hope you got something from Asheesh. I hope you got something small from me. But really, a lot of it starts right here. Okay, and I've got some tips if you want some other time about how to really learn how to connect with yourself. But anyway, thank you for the question, Brandy. Look what you started. So I'm not blaming you. Great question, Brandy. Oh, we got more questions in here. Thank you so much. Beautiful questions. I don't know where to go. Let's see if I do it in order. All right. How can we handle, this is from Femi again, how can we handle mental stress as a professional, especially looking at lots of people who are working from home? I guess this is tapping into the executive coach, Femi? Fair enough. We said she'd take any questions. So any tips on handling mental stress right now?
I think it builds on what you just said, Yami, that our greatest asset ourselves, but our greatest liability can also be ourselves, right? And sometimes I know for high achievers and all of us here who desire to truly make a difference in the world, sometimes we don't take a pause because we think the only way to make an impact is through constant action. The only way to make an impact, and I fall into that trap. But we forget, and I'm going to throw in another sports analogy. Winning, you think about the duration of a race or a duration of a game, or let's look at the Olympics, that's once every 4 years, right? What's happening the rest of those 4 years versus those few weeks in the summer?
4 weeks.
4 weeks in the summer. Well, it's preparation and it's also rest. It's preparation and rest. Resting and taking care of yourself and making sure that you are rested, that's also a way of how you can make an impact, because that's how we need you to be your best you in order to make that difference. And the way you can become your best you isn't through constant action, constant doing. It's also through resting.
Beautiful.
Resting and prepping.
All right, thank you so much, Shami. I hope you got good value there. Was okay, good. I just thought I heard someone. All right. We have the anonymous attendee, and those of you who watch me regularly know I always get nervous by anonymous people. But I thank you for not Zoom bombing us, because anonymous people can do anything. So thank you for actually asking a question. Professor Siang, most of social entrepreneurs start an organization thinking they will work with it for their whole life because this is their why. What if they find out and fall in love with another why? How do you manage a possible transition? I can see why this person chose to be anonymous. You're getting a free tip here. That's totally fine. Just give credit to Shape the World, okay? You got a free tip right here. So how do you manage a transition? Professor, do you want to share anything? We could also share your invoice with this person.
I think our context is always changing, right? Our context is always changing. And then, so how we serve in terms of context has to be in context. That will also change. The how will change. The why may not change, but the how is changing. And there may be new circumstances that come up. I've seen this where new circumstances that come up, other demands on time, and it's one may need to take a pause away from that, the how of how one serves in terms of that why, right? And that's okay. That's okay. I think one is understanding self-awareness is so important, and it's one of the most underrated focus out there when it comes to leading. And so when you're starting to feel this way, it will be great to dive into, all right, why? You know, why is it? Maybe it's because you're not feeling empowered in the organization. Is it because, I mean, there's a whole range of answers to why you, but one is understanding that feeling and instead of feeling guilty or shame about it, just diving into the why, and also bring in trusted friends and advisors to help you think through that. And then once you have discovered, all right, here's the reason why you're feeling that way. Is it something within your control? Is it solvable, right? Or is it just simply you have a shift in terms of what matters to you? The problem, the type of, so for me, if it shifts from education to say climate change,
yeah,
that's okay. That's okay. But just having clarity about and understanding the why, rather than why you're wanting to make the shift, I think will be really, really important. So you can articulate and explain it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. All right, you got your freebie there. Thank you, everybody. Please keep the questions coming in. There are a few new people who've joined. I can see a new member of the family, Francesca Scott. Welcome, Francesca. We do shout outs on Shape the World, so that's totally normal. You won't see that on most webinars, though. Now, also, like most webinars, we love to hear from you. So please post a question using the Q&A button. We're live with Professor Sanyin Siang. She's a professor at Duke's Pratt School of Engineering, and she's also ranked the #1 executive coach in the world. We're talking about philanthropy, but also, hey, anything you want to talk about. We've got a few sneaky coaching questions come in, and she's taking them graciously. We're also live with Asheesh Advani, who's president and CEO of JA Worldwide. You know Asheesh already, so please keep the questions coming. We got a few more. Let's see. Danielle, first question from Danielle. How can we make a population like Brazil, where there is a political polarization understand that we have to protect a group that's at risk, like the elderly. All right, Danielle, I can hear your suffering and your frustration. So thank you for bringing that and sharing that here. Um, Professor Asheesh, who wants to respond in some way?
It's a very difficult question. And it's a very timely question. It's happening all over the world because there are different perspectives on individual rights versus community rights. And I think what's happened in the world is there was already polarization on that front before this crisis. And this crisis has put a magnifying glass on groups of people who really believe that individual rights are paramount and can trump protecting a certain group of people, and others who believe that protecting groups of people is so important for society that individual rights take a temporary backseat. And it's for 200 years or 300 years, I think we've had this debate in many ways as society. I think what's happened during this crisis is great leaders have been able to communicate how to manage that balance based on the true democratic values of the societies that they are sort of representing. So look what happened in New Zealand. I think the leader there did such a great job of being able to represent the complex dynamics of that country and being able to manage it in a way in which there was less polarization, not more polarization, even though people are really entrenched in their beliefs. Yeah. So I think the communication style of the leader really matters. And making tough choices also makes, and that's also very difficult for leaders. Sometimes it's, you're going to disappoint a group of people and you just have to make the decision and do your best to explain to them why. So I guess that's my answer to the question. I'd be interested, it's Sanyin or Yemi, if you have a different perspective on this.
I agree with you. So no defense here. Professor?
Everything Asheesh said is I'm learning from that as well.
Same here. Okay. All right. So we'll take one more question. Then we have a little demo. Rodrigo's ready. He's going to go live and give us a small demo of Goodwill Vows. And it's really in celebration of Goodwill Vows that we are coming together. And if you have any other questions, please post them, because right after the demo, we'll dive back into your questions. So there's still time to post the question, okay? Thank you. All right. Now, I love this. This is a series of questions from my mom. And I feel very blessed that I fell not very far from the tree. You can see my mom is passionate about making the world a better place. So I can't take credit for my passion there. Thank you, Mom, for this question. So Mom says, can one regard someone who donates from illegal resources or gains, or from transactions that are sins against humanity, can we regard such a person as a philanthropist? Now, there's more, but I wonder if we should just maybe pause there. And I can also make a connection, because it's one thing to answer this question right now, but how about over time? Imagine someone like Mom describes, but it was kind of okay at the time. So okay that you even got a statue made of you. But then over time, everybody agreed, you know what? That was a sin against humanity. So I think it's a static question, but it's also a dynamic question. But if you come back to the core of Mom's question, could we consider such a person a philanthropist? Tough question. So your thoughts, please. Professor Asheesh, what do you think?
I've got an opinion on this one, but before I express my opinion, Sanyin, if you have a thought or an opinion and you want to go first, I want to give you the chance to.
Please go ahead, Asheesh.
So I think we should recognize, first of all, that philanthropy is important to actually enable civil society to complement the important work of governments to actually create positive change for the world. So there's, let's start with the assumption that actually civil society is adding real, genuine value in the world.
Yeah.
And the second question is, how has money been made by people who are philanthropists? Yeah. And the reality is we've had a really unequal world for a long time. We've had a racist world for a long time.
Yeah.
So a very high portion of the value that's been generated, maybe even close to 99%, like that high a number, has been generated effectively in the form of doing things, whether knowingly or not, where it was not necessarily good for creating a more equal world. So I think we should recognize that so much wealth has been created in that way, and not try to compare, who was more racist or less racist, or who was more unequal or less unequal, and have that debate. So I think if we start with that recognition, then I think we should be really transparent and honest about where historically wealth was generated in the world, going back even 1,000 years.
Brilliant. That's a courageous and...
That doesn't mean, by the way, just to be clear, that in the future it's going to be the same. Right? So democratizing philanthropy means that we're actually solving the problem, or being part of the solution to this problem. That allowing as many people and as equal a world to actually be generating this value of giving back, that's being part of the solution, which is one reason why Goodwill Vows is so timely and important. So I guess that's my philosophy on this. Having said that, we have to have clear ethical standards. If somebody's like Jeffrey Epstein is, in jail or going to jail or does awful things, of course we should not take money from them. And then there's gray area stuff, climate change. Now that we know certain organizations are really part of the problem for climate change, maybe some organizations are able and willing, particularly if their mission is climate change, right? If your mission is climate change, you obviously shouldn't accept money from organizations that are in opposition to your mission.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? So I think there's that more black and whitey, element, and then there's so much gray area,
Yeah, thank you. Professor, did you want to comment on this? Or are you good?
I think in terms of reputation, our reputation, we only have one name, and we can't buy ourselves another name. We have a name of our organization, we can't buy ourselves another name, right? It stays with us. So we'll be judged by the company that we keep, and also by how we act according to our values and our principles. So having clarity. Asheesh raised the ideas of ethics, ethical standards, having clarity around our values. First, that will be a guiding light on who you take money from. And then the other thing I think a lot about is this Martin Luther quote. It's one of my favorite quotes. We're not yet whom we shall become. We're not yet whom we shall become. And we're all striving towards becoming better, hopefully, right? And so to have that in context of the situation, I think will be important.
Well, that is powerful. And I do hope those who get to watch this after it is live, you can pause the video and just digest the combination of what Asheesh has shared and what Professor Sanyin Siang has also shared. I think that's really powerful because there's almost an element of forgiveness in what professors just shared. If we're not yet who we might become, the person who made money at 35 may have become someone very different at 50 when they give. And so there is that progression. But Asheesh also shared that there is a big, large gray area. And since we were talking about sins, something Asheesh said that it reminded me of something that might help respond to this question. So it's a story, short story, of a very religious person who goes out and prays on the terrace at home and says, God, we've got no money, we're starving, please bring food, please, please, please. And their neighbor, who doesn't believe in God, is mocking, looking at them and going, oh my God, here you go praying again, like God is going to come down and give you food. And this person comes out the next day and prays to God again. Lo and behold, by the third day, there's a ring on the doorbell. And this person opens the door and there's a basket of food. And immediately this person drops to their knees and goes, thank you so much, God, for this food. And the neighbor comes in and goes, aha, gotcha. It wasn't your God, it was me. I bought that food and I put it there. Without missing a beat, this person goes, God, thank you for this food. And thank you for making the devil pay for it. Takes the basket and goes inside. Now, should this person reject the food because the devil paid for it? I don't think so. Obviously, it's a large gray area and there's lots of different ways we can look at this.
Well, I'll say one more thing. If the organization's mission is to create social change and accelerate change in society, and that's an explicit part of the mission, they can actually be part of the solution of being proactive in changing norms. And they can say, we are not going to take money from these types of organizations. We're not going to take money from these types of organizations in order to push behavior change on the part of corporations or a part of institutions. And that's a perfectly viable strategy. In fact, we need organizations that do that. So I think we're going to be seeing much more of that in the future for all the reasons that we know at this time. And I'm a supporter of people advancing the cause, but I think we should also recognize the complexity of history.
There's also this idea of, we think about in terms, right now we're just talking only about one type of capital, which is financial capital. But there's also, I think also in terms of social capital, reputational capital, and intellectual capital. And so that financial capital, you know, when it's in misalignment with one's values, it can actually, you look at the trade-offs, when it's in misalignment with one's values, you can actually destroy the other three types of capital, which are just as valuable, right? And so that's what Asheesh was saying, that really resonated, is aligning those values and thinking in the bigger picture context.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Again, I hope you get a chance to just pause the video and digest a lot of what's been shared. So thank you very much, Mom, for that question. I think to maybe even close on a very strong note, if you read and listen to Mom's question again, if somebody actually donates from some illegal activity or crime against humanity, well, we all know they need to be locked up, right? So, so I think we've discussed more the gray area where maybe they did something that wasn't positive for society. But beyond the gray, right? If they're absolutely doing something illegal, then there is no gray there. They should be locked up. We don't want their money, you know, do something else with it. So thank you. I think at this point, I'm going to ask Professor Siang and Asheesh to start thinking about your kind of some closing thoughts. We'll always come to you before we close. We still have a couple of things to do before we come to you, and one of them is the demo. But just so you know, we'll come to you before we close. All right, so right now I'd like to invite Rodrigo Nunes. Rodrigo is a project manager for Goodwill Vows, and he's going to give us a small demo. So if you haven't been to the site yet, Rodrigo is going to get you past the screen and you can see the site. If you want to spend time there by yourself, get in touch with us, we'll give you the password. Rodrigo, you got the mic.
Thank you very much, Yemi. Thank you, Asheesh. Thank you, Dr. Sanyin, Professor Sanyin. First of all, I believe it's very important what we have been talking here. And regarding the donations in the gray area, for example, myself, at least, have always thinking about philanthropy as something that rich people, wealth organizations give money to projects. And what we aim to tackle here with Goodwill Vows is making philanthropy accessible, making philanthropy part of the habit of giving for everyone, everybody who wants to help the world, wants to help a project or a cause they champion for. So I'm going to show you the beta version. Most of you who are here already had the chance to access here, to make a vow. I have seen some of your vows in here. It needs a password so far. So we are asking for feedbacks on the website, but you can later on play a little bit. You can go to learn about us. You can give your feedbacks in the form here. You can learn about some of the NGOs we love, the beneficiaries they have. But the idea is very simple. It's that you can make a public vow. You can make a promise of intention for donating any amount of money to any organization in the world and make it public. Make people know that you are taking action and they can take action. So it's quite a simple form. You can select if it's an organization. So you can make a vow in the name of your own organization or a personal vow. Okay. We just need to fill full name, email, the phone if you want to, the city where you are located and country. Then we're going to select the beneficiary organization. Maybe you already know the organization you want to make a vow, but you can make a vow like telling, if I get one job, I will donate $5 or $100 to children's program. You don't need to tell us the beneficiary right now, but if you want to, you can have, for example, I can make a vow for Black Lives Matter. I would just need to input the website, the URL, so the curators can check if the organization is a valid one, if it's real. And I need to indicate the country where the beneficiary organization is based. I can input up to 3 different organizations. I go next, and I'll tell if my vow has a conditional event. What does that mean? Will I pay the donation if something comes to life? For example, if I get a job, or if my company gets a new contract we want to, or if my IPO goes well. So I can tell what is the vow and what is the conditional event. Or no, I just want to make a donation. That is possible also. So I vow to donate $10 to Black Lives Matter. Okay, and I can input a deadline for that vow. So by the end of July, I intend to make the donation of those $10, and I make a vow. I received thank you for registration. Your vow, we will contact you shortly for validation. Please remember that Goodwill Vows does not charge or receive any tax from vowers, no matter if it's a personal or corporate vow. So my vow is registered. Now it goes to a base where our curators will check if my data is okay, if the organization I choose is okay, and then will get back to me to say, okay, your vow is valid now, and this vow will become public at our vows page. Okay, so every vow that has been made and has been validated will be here with the date it was made, the type, or donor organization or donor person. If there is a conditional event, that means that anybody who accesses the website can track those vows. So if I see a vow that some big organization vowed $100,000 to my local community program, if something comes to happen, I can become a champion of this vow and be public about it. Like, okay, your condition was fulfilled. Now it's time for you to pay. And I can ask here. And we are working on, but everyone who makes a vow will receive a badge, a customized badge, telling that you made a vow, and you can share it in your website, you can share it in your social media, and you can see here that so far all vows are listed as made. This will be much beautiful in some weeks, much more beautiful in some weeks. But you can check here, it's made now, but it can be changed to vow due, like your condition was met, was fulfilled, it's time to pay. Vow honored, you paid the amount you promised. Vow honored with distinction, you paid more than you promised. Vow dismissed, if your condition was not fulfilled, like for example, an IPO. And vow, the other one, Yemi?
Broken.
Vow broken. If the condition was met, was fulfilled, but you didn't pay that, your vow will be here and the vow trackers can see that. So the main idea is to have people engaged into donating. And you can see that the vows have since $5 to $10,000 here. You can promise $1 million. It's not about how much you give. It's about every vow counts. So we want to invite you all to please access the website, take a look, make your vow, and also you can register as a beneficiary. For example, Luis has an NGO, and he can register here to be listed, because in some weeks we aim to have it integrated, the list to be integrated. When I say, okay, I want to select a beneficiary, you can look for someone who is already in here. And we have the featured beneficiaries. Those ones are some beneficiary organizations, some NGOs that might have some destack, that might have some more glow here in the beneficiary list. And we have in here some of the ones from people who got the giveaways, Yemi, from Tuesday. So for example, the Nature Conservancy, Rural Nurture Initiative, Land Hand for Africa are all NGOs that were nominated by our participants.
Awesome.
And this is it.
All right, Rodrigo, thank you so much. Just a round of applause there. Thank you so much to Rodrigo and the team. Thank you. Thank you also to JA Worldwide. They've been partners in the kitchen, helping us with this. So we have a few minutes left before I'd love to wrap. Maybe I just pause for any questions or reactions or anything anybody, I guess in Asheesh's case, anything you want to add, because you've seen this before. And Professor, if you wanted to react or respond to anything you saw.
Sanyin, you want to go first?
I think it's wonderful because, and then behavioral science tells us that if we make, when we write something down or we speak it, it will have a better chance of becoming true, right? And so, and then to see it in the collective, I mean, we are also, we are influenced by what other people do. So I think this is such a brilliant initiative.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Hey, team, did you get that sound bite? Can we just cut that out and use that? I did interrupt you. I went radio silent when you were speaking. That was just so beautiful. Thank you. And the other thing that Asheesh will attest to is in every conversation, we are learning more about Goodwill Vows. So what you just said now about behavioral sciences and the value of writing something down, I think we all knew that maybe in the back of our mind somewhere, but I don't think we were thinking about that in the kitchen. We're thinking about lots of other things. So thank you so much for sharing that. Asheesh, did you want to add something, please?
Yeah, once again, I'm just so grateful to the team who's worked on this. It's just truly amazing to see it evolve and continue to become better. I had never seen the public page that you guys have been working on before. It's all new to me to see all this. So, UPG, we're just so grateful that you're taking the leadership on this. And, the top 100 NGOs in the world are listed in the NGOs we love. So I really want to stress this is not at all a JA project. We're just one of the first organizations to see the value in this for the world. And I want to encourage other organizations as well. I know you've got 5 more that you're featuring, but keep featuring more. Sanyin, if you've got an organization that you want to feature,
yes,
please let the team know from UPG. I know they would love to be, grateful to you for doing this for us. But
yes,
the
please.
fact that one of the top leadership coaches in the world has said this about Goodwill Vows, UPG team, God, this is I hope this fills you with warmth, because it should.
It does. It absolutely does. And I want to respond to what Asheesh just said, but build a segue also from what Asheesh said. One of the guiding philosophies as we've kind of been building this has just been love, actually. And if you write the word love down and you look at some of the terminology across the site, you'll understand why we say vow and not pledge or commitment. You'll understand why the vows are fulfilled or the vows are broken and not anything else. And the way we can make that happen is through partners like JA Worldwide, who say, we love this, we love the spirit, and we're going to write a check to make sure you can do this the right way. Now, so thank you, JA Worldwide. And thank you to all the future partners who are going to come in. And again, this is UPG. Everything we do is accessible, right? So you don't have to write a huge check to support anything we're doing. Small things matter. And if you don't have something right now, you can make a vow, right? You can make a vow to UPG. So I do want to build from there and just say, yes, we would love to support, to feature Professor, any NGO that you love. Please, in the spirit of generosity, the 5 more Asheesh talked about is we've been doing giveaways because the featured slot is more prominent. So we do these giveaways where some of our most engaged stakeholders, we say, all right, you get to nominate one NGO that we're going to give that prominent slot on the site. So Professor, you get the same love. If you would like to nominate an NGO, it's done. All right, you can do it now, but we'll get in touch with you later for sure to get the name, but you can do it anytime you want. Okay, so thank you so much. All right, I don't know if you wanted to say anything. I see you reacting. Did you want to say anything, Professor? Or are you good on that? All right, so let me check. I see lots of love in the chat. Thank you, everybody. We have to let them go. Thank you so much. I think I want to come to you now for your closing thoughts as we end this conversation.
Before that, Yemi, do you want to take a look at the polls? Everybody has answered the poll.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Rodrigo. So let's take a look at the poll. And thank you, everyone, for answering the poll, or almost everyone. So what does philanthropy mean to you? An act of giving by the rich. So we got 0 votes for that today. Thank you. An act of generosity that anyone can do. 88%. You can see we've got the right crowd in the room. Thank you. An act of gratitude when something good happens. 0 votes for that today. An act of support. An act to support people who are less fortunate. We got 2 votes there. 12%. So hey, and then I don't know got 0 votes, but we got a spread. Thank you for the reminder, Rodrigo. We'll keep running this and just see how the data stacks up. I don't know, any comments on the poll? Any
well, maybe
predictive comments?
I can wrap it in my closing thoughts.
Okay.
Yemi, because I think this proves the point that Sanyin and I have been saying throughout the course of this call, which is philanthropy is democratic. I mean, you already see that it's about from everyone, that it's something everyone can do. It's not just for the rich. It's not just for one place in the world. It's not just for, you know, moving wealth from the people with money to people who don't have money. It's really the generosity of spirit. And it's what Sanyin said, and it's what I said. And so I think it's so amazing to see that the audience feels the same way about this.
Brilliant, thank you. Professor Siang, your closing thoughts, something to leave us with today?
We're on this journey, every one of us, to become our best selves. And we all want to be a part, you know, in part of that being that best self is being a part of something that's bigger than ourselves, right? Yeah. And so I think about this idea of the love of humanity and being a part of humanity and helping humanity thrive. That is noble and that is good, and that's good for all of us. And then I also think about understanding self, what we value is going to be so important to understanding how we can add value to the world and to that bigger, to being part of that bigger sense than each one of us. And finally, this idea of we can all lead, we can all give, we can all act generously from where we are. Suddenly, as Asheesh was talking about that just a moment ago, I'm picturing, think about how vast a beach is, you know, and the beach is a collection of gazillion little grains of sand.
Yeah.
But you can create something powerful. It's the collective, right? Us being a part of this larger thing that is humanity. So that's this was such, I learned so much from listening to Yemi and Asheesh. Thank you so much for I'm grateful for this time together and what I've learned, what you have taught me.
Thank you so much. So big thank you to Professor Sanyin Siang. Big thank you to Asheesh Advani. Big thank you to the Shape the World audience. I learned so much in this conversation. And for anyone who's watching this after the live feed, I hope you also feel like you got a gift, because this has all been about giving. And so I hope you feel like you've received a gift listening to this conversation. We're celebrating the birth of Goodwill Vows. And we've talked about how, you know, life is interdependent, even more so today, which is why we like to think of Goodwill Vows as philanthropy in an interdependent way. If you don't know this, please check out the site. If you want the password, get in touch with us. You know how. Thank you so much to our special guests, to the audience. Stay blessed, and let us keep working hard to shape the world. Thank you.